Hey everybody, welcome to Meet the Prof. This is the podcast where my friend Spence Hackney and I take questions we get from college students and we ask them to Christian professors, and our goal is to encourage Christ-centered conversations on the college campus. So thank you for joining us, whether you're on YouTube or you're listening on Spotify or some other podcast app. We're so glad you're here. And you have the treat now of hearing part 2 of our interview with Dr. Karen Liller. She is a professor at the University of South Florida. And I think you should go back and hear the first one if you didn't already, because she's very warmly transparent about how God has worked in her life. And I think you'll find part 2 here practical and helpful, whether you're a professor or you are a college student or you're just someone who loves the college campus. If you would like to find out more about these Christian professors, go to meettheprof.com, and there are over 500 Christian professors who have shared their profiles there. And if you are a Christian professor, would you consider going online there and creating a profile? It's real easy to do, and that's a great way you can let students find out that you're a Christian, and you can share some of how you've seen God work in your life to save you. So, let's jump in. Here's part 2 of our interview with Dr. Karen Liller.
Tell me a little bit about, it sounds like you're very open about your faith, first of all, so I'm excited. Mm-hmm. But what sort of creative approaches have you taken to tell students that you're a follower of Jesus?
Yeah, this was interesting. I thought about that question, and I think, what am I doing about that? Well, I think I wrote down, like, every day since I can remember, I wear this is a cross.
Yeah.
And I wear it every day. And it's an outward expression of my faith. And I've never thought about it. I never thought, should I do that? Basically, I have the right to do that. Mm-hmm. It's an outward expression of my faith. So one day a student comes into my office, and I had her in class, and we're sitting and we're talking, and she was telling me about her future plans. She goes, well, I'm a Christian. And I said, oh, okay. I said, you're a Christian? She goes, and I want to tell you something. She goes, Dr. Liller, you are one of the bravest professors I've ever met. And I said, uh-oh, what did I do? I said, oh, you are? I am? I go, why? She goes, well, because you wear that cross, and it's noticed, and every day you wear it, and you're not afraid, and you're not ashamed.
Wow. And
I thought, well, I'm not afraid. That's true. Until somebody says you must take your cross off. I said, I'm not afraid. And I'm never ashamed. Never ashamed of my faith. And I said, that's so strange to me. Oh, that stuck with me, because there may be faculty, and that's why I love Meet the Prof, because there may be faculty who are afraid to do that. Mm-hmm. And I just never thought about it. I just never, maybe because I'm in public health and it's more accepting, I don't know. But I've never had an issue with that. So ever since then, I want to always wear it, always when there's an opening to let me discuss things. You don't have to do it in your office if you worry about this being a secular place and you can't do that on laws or whatever. You can go to lunch, you can go somewhere, else with a student, and really just some students are really wanting to hear your story. They're wanting to hear, how can I maneuver this in a world that is not that accepting sometimes, of having faith and also being in science, which you can do both. And so, I think Maya Angelou or someone said, I love it. It's not what I say, it's not what I do, it's how you make people feel that will be remembered. It's not what you say or do, it's how you made them feel. And so that's what I try to remember too when I'm talking to the students. A lot of them have different faiths. I run an activist lab, and I have students of all faiths in that lab, and they know that I'm respectful. They know that they can talk about their faith. I think it's interesting sometimes. I get to learn about other faiths and how they operate. But I'm also quite candid. There are some people that say you should never say what your faith is, whatever, you should never reveal that. Well, for me, that's never worked. And I've, as I said, if I wanted to do that, I wouldn't wear my cross. So, and it's just very, 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 very important to me.
I'm struck by the power of consistency in a lot of what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's not a huge thing. It's a small thing over a long period of time. It's how
Yeah.
you treat people every day. I think we forget about that. Sometimes it's just being the same person authentically day after day is what makes the difference.
Yeah, I really do. You know, everybody has their off days. Everybody comes in. Everybody has a day, right? This is a day of a day of a day. So I'm not going to be this. I'm not going to be that. But you know, I think people have a basic nature. People have a base your soul, you know, and I think that will come through, no matter if you have a good day or a bad day.
Yeah.
And hearing stories like yours of people who do take steps of faith, they're not ashamed, that gives me courage. It encourages me to step out more. I know that this will encourage other Christian faculty in ways they can let their faith be known. So
Sure.
Well, tell us, how have you had any connections with other Christian faculty there at USF? Have there been any stories, ways God's connected you with other Christians?
Yeah, you know, well, I'll tell you, at USF, we had a group, and I think you had Marcus on before. I think he's been part of Jane's group. Jane Zhang, you had her on as Meet the Prof.
Episode 58 and 59.
Yes, and I have to tell you, she is remarkable. I give hats off to her because, you know, she was the one that said, I wonder if there's a group out there at USF and that's interested in this. And she found me. She sent like an email to some people that told her about other people, because I've known Marcus for a while, and you know, so she reached out and said, hey, I want to start this group. I want to get this kicked up again. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, I'm interested. So, you know, she plans these weekly meetings and these prayers, and she's an amazing Christian. And and unfortunately, every day she assigns it. My calendar is so horrible that I can't ever often go. So she'll write to me and say, so we didn't see you, so you must be busy. But this is what we talked about. And
she's so gracious. She understands faculty life.
And I have to tell you, her story about coming here from China and her family thinking she had lost her mind when she had come to the United States, and, you know, her husband to be rushing over because they thought she had really lost her mind when she got here. And how now they're all Christians, you know, her husband, her parents. I mean, what an amazing story. I mean, that episode really, really moved me. And I'm so glad she's here, and I'm so glad that, and I promise I'm going to try to be better. That's my goal, to be better for this group, to be part of it. They're amazing. We talk about issues going on. They pray for students. They pray for and they ask about, what I like about the group is it's not just about students and what we're doing, our work. It's about our family. It's about, is there an issue in your family right now? Is there anyone to pray about? Can we pray with you?
You're sharing life with each other.
Yeah, it's your whole life experience, and it's not just, you know, a work problem or an issue, something going on with a student. So I really like that. And then the other day, out of the blue, because of Meet the Prof, I had a student that is working with crew here on campus. And reached out and said, hey, Dr. Liller, I was going through Meet the Prof, and I saw you. And I'm at USF right here, and she said, can we get together to talk about my internship? And, you know, and I said, support. And I said, but yeah, I said, I want to know how you're doing, and let's meet up and discuss that. And that was amazing, you know, to me, because normally I know about crew, I've done some things with them, but I haven't really had a great involvement with them. So I thought that was kind of nice. And then I think Marcus wrote to me too, and he said, hey, this student, did you get with this student? I said, yeah. I said, yeah, she reached out to me. So thank you for that.
That's really fun. Yeah, we loved getting to know Marcus as well. I think it was episode 27. And then John Figueroa, he'll be another one that's already on.
Great. Yeah, they're all great.
We love you, USF professors.
I'm glad.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you some about your research.
Okay.
So you said some of your research has to do with adolescent injury.
Yes.
You're researching on child and adolescent injury. Can you tell us more about that, and maybe even specifically how you've seen your faith really inform your research and your teaching?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. Yeah, I've studied injuries now for, way long time. I always say when you get in the field of injury prevention, you're bit by the injury bug, they say, and you never let go. Mm-hmm. It never lets go. Been studying it for over 25 years and trying to determine the risk factors and prevention strategies for unintentional injuries and those done with intent. Unintentional injuries are just unintentional. There's no harmful intent. This is like if you fell or if you were in a motor vehicle crash, or you a fire or something. There's no intent to harm. Whereas violence, I'm also studying violence now, which is there is presumable intent. So these would be suicides, homicides, acts of violence. So I'm also looking at those now. For the last 5 years, I've been focusing a lot on those. In fact, right now, we're doing a study on risk and protective factors for suicide among Black youth. Normally, we saw suicides very high in older white males. That was the highest suicide rates. Still very high, but we're seeing younger people now really seeing an increase in their suicide rates. And so I knew that data, and so decided to work with some colleagues here on that topic as well. In injury prevention, I also help pass some laws which are very important, like the bike helmet law in the state of Florida, help with the pool fencing law. So I worked in a lot. That's how I did the Activist Lab, which the Activist Lab teaches students how to be good advocates and leaders in public health. And I learned a lot of that from kind of trial by fire, trying to advocate for laws in Tallahassee and in Congress about how to change things, because laws are very important. It goes back to people's behavior. When there's a law, sometimes that works to your advantage. But in injury, we say the 3 E's. Education's important, engineering, better products, safer cars, and enforcement of laws. All those 3 work together so people are injured less. I think what's happened with me in the injury prevention field has been I have seen through my work the importance of talking to families who have lost individuals to injuries, especially have lost children. The deep pain they're in, and I have seen firsthand how important faith is to people and their belief system. Going through the loss of a child, however means it happened, is horrible. I mean, we're humans. It's awful. But seeing how important their faith is has really built in me as I do prevention programs. How can we tap into that, right? As we look at not only after, you want to prevent, in public health we're all about prevention. So basically, how can we prevent this injury, and how can we lean on people's faith and their belief systems to develop our programs? How can we incorporate that, because that's an important part of who they are. So I've used that. The suicide studies that we're doing with the Black youth are really interesting. When I talk to the parents really say church is important. Church is important for the children, and faith. So then we do focus groups with the kids, because what I do is as I study these things to better understand what challenges them and what protects them from suicidal ideation, thoughts about harming yourself, or attempts, or even an attempt. I ask them, what is it in your life that is risky? What in your life challenges you? What protects you? And I thought these were people between about 14 or 15 years old. I thought, like the parents, because the parents had told me how important faith was, they didn't mention it. And I was like, they didn't mention it. They mentioned friends, and it could be their age, right? And I remember talking to a colleague of mine, and I said, the parents say that we're going to they go to church, and this is very important in their lives, and we know, how good. But I said, but the kids, he said, you know what? He said, they don't know it yet. They don't know it yet. He said, they're young, they're thinking. He said, it would be nice if you could follow them, which I'd love to do, over the years, and let's see, how important faith has come in their lives. But right now, they're kind of, and I don't know if it's because mom and dad make us go to church, so we don't like it, that kind of thing. I don't know where this is very interesting to me, and I really want to explore that in the future, because I really do think faith is going to be a strong foundation for them. I really do. But I want to see how this goes forwards, because right now, it's more, the parents are saying it, but not so much there. And that's where I think the church, I've talked to my own pastor about this, how important the church could be, in different populations and groups, and reaching them where they are. Do
you have some examples?
Yeah, well, we do. Our church, Bay Hope, and not a commercial for Bay Hope, but they do remarkable work with kids who have gotten into trouble, who are in, who've gone to jail, kids and that. And we are a church that, basically Pastor Matthew works to put churches all over the world. And so, he's very much an Acts 3. He's basically going out and seeding the world with churches, and they do so much with children, and they do so much reach out. In fact, I told him he had years ago on the I had like I guess even before podcasts. I mean, it was just kind of like he would send us online a link, and it was called Christmas in a Minute. Christmas in a Minute was done during the holiday season, and he would, in a minute, like every day or every other day, read or talk about a verse about the holiday, the season, Christmas, the meaning of Christmas. And I loved it. I waited for that. I think it's what got me interested maybe in podcasting. I absolutely loved, I waited for that in the morning. He would do it in the morning, and it was called Christmas in a Minute. And I thought, because people's attention spans is like this big. Yeah. So I said, okay, he's on to something. So when I started the Activist Lab, I said, I remember that. So I wanted to do public health in a minute. I said, I wonder if I could do that. So I get these experts, and I say, you got 1 minute to tell me what you're passionate about, what you're advocating for or championing. You have 1 minute. And I video them. So we have it on our website as an episode that we do called Public Health. So I called Pastor Matthew and I said, I'm not like plagiarizing anything, am I? Because I'm used to, he said, no, I don't know the words in a minute. I said, well, I know, but he goes, Karen, go. It's wonderful. Go ahead and do it. So, just so many ways like that. He's been a remarkable influence. He's a magnificent speaker too. And I've learned, in fact, a lot of his mannerisms in service, I've adopted, I think, in class, because I've said, he really got the message across there well today. But nice. I love the church because he does so much in the community. So I know, and he's changed the lives of so many kids. Not just him, that whole church, all his staff. Obviously, it's not just him. But that was where I think there's a place for the church. And, someday when I leave this academia world, and go off and do something else or retire or whatever, I really want to get involved more like that, because I know there's a need. I know there's a need. And you have to bring the church to where they're at. Mm-hmm. Because the students I talk to in my focus group, or the children that I talk to, they did have a spiritual way. They just didn't call it that. And I think sometimes you need to hear it. You need to hear it. You need to hear it from peers, and you need to hear it from others.
Yeah. Sometimes kids think, yeah, I just need my friends. That's what's
They
most
just
important.
wanted their friends. Their
The
friends.
context might be in church. The parents set that up.
But
Their
I'll tell
friends
you
are in
what
church,
was
but they don't
so
think-
important to these kids we talked to was family. Family was very protective. Friends could be positive and negative. Friends could be, yes, you're very supportive. Friends could also be negative. Fighting with friends and disagreements and that. Social media was anyway. It's got a whole long thing of it. Social media was not so loved. So lots of things, but I think that it'd be interesting to follow those kids over time.
Yeah.
Like a longitudinal study and to see where they end up. Yeah.
Well, Karen, since you figured out that the phrase is not trademarked to say in a minute,
Not.
maybe Spence and I change this next section. Instead of lightning round, maybe we can say this advice in a minute.
Advice
We might
in a
start calling
minute.
it
I
that.
know
Advice
it
in a
has a
minute.
ring to it, right? I like it.
Yes, I like it. Well, but let me ask you. The first question is, what advice would you give to other Christian professors who maybe want to have an influence on their campus, but they don't know how?
Yeah, it's hard because, we've got this whole, especially at a secular school, I've never worked at a Christian university, probably would love to, but I never did. But I would say express as where you're comfortable. You can be respectful of all religions, of all faiths. But the thing is, if they want to wear a cross, I see no reason why they can't do that. And I would say find a Jane on your campus. Because they're there. I know they're there. Reach out, maybe do what she did. Send an email on your private computer, your private account. Say, hey, are you out there? I'd really like to get together. Talk. There's so many organizations usually on campuses. There's Crew. There's so many Christian groups. I would say take the step. If you don't know how to do this, reach out. Because trust me, I've never met an organization yet that said, no, we don't want your help. So that's what I would do.
Great answer. What advice would you give to students struggling with doubts about God?
Yeah, doubts about God. I think students all go through this. I think sometimes we all go through this, right? Because we're human, we have doubts or whatever. My son was going through a difficult time changing jobs. He's a lawyer and he wasn't happy in his job and he didn't know what to do and he was all over the place and he was calling me upset and I said to him, I remember, and it must have been God, I said, find your faith. You've got to find your faith. And I said, you were grounded in faith. I said, pray. There'll be a plan. He said, I don't know if there's a plan. I said, there's a plan. Keep praying. Leave this job if you don't like it. Go to another, but find your faith. And this is what I say to students sometimes, if they're all like us, and if I know they have a faith, I'll say, find it. Find it and lean on it. Because I said that will get you through. And just listening, sometimes we just got to stop. And before we profess anything or say anything, we just need to listen. We just need to be a listener. Listen to their issue, be compassionate, and again, find it. Find your faith. That's what I had to do, after Lisa. Time passed, but I had to find it. I had to find it again.
I love the fact that there's some action taken there.
Yeah.
There's some responsibility of the person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what about for parents? What advice would you give to parents who are about to send their kids off to college?
Well, I sent 2 of them off, and I would say, and this is, you're so smart after it happens. During it, it's like, I would say my daughter went to St. Leo University here in Tampa, which is a Christian university. Rebecca loves the small. She's much more about the small university. They're not that small, but not a USF. We have 60, 70,000 students. Basically they're smaller, much smaller classes. My son Matthew went to USF. So he wanted the big school, all the big things. Rebecca wanted the smaller thing. But it didn't matter. I was scared to death for both of them, because, and I remember saying, well, and I prayed very hard when the kids went off to school. But, you have to give them some rope, though. They have to explore. They have to learn for themselves some things. You have to do that. I think one of the worst things to do is to hover over them and have them feel, add to their anxiety. They're already going to be anxious. They're away from home in a new environment. You don't want to add to that. And so be a comfort, be a support, be there though as a parent. I mean, you can't let, things go totally awry, but be there as a parent, but also show them a lot of compassion and support. And I always tell my kids, you can always come home. You can always come home. There's a home. This is your home. This is what my parents taught me. In their house, they would say, this is not our house, this is your house. This is all of our houses. So, I always tell them, and my son, I mean, he did come home for a while to figure out what he wanted to do with his life and where he wanted to go. And I told him, I said, I just kept telling him, I wish I had the answer, but God has the answer. So find it, seek it, find your faith, because it's there. It's there. No matter what you think, it's working. It's there.
Sounds like your kids are fortunate to have a praying mama, and so I commend you for that.
Well, thank you.
What do you think might be your next step of faith on campus? What's next for you?
I have to talk to Jane because she wants me at our meetings, and I'm going to make a concerted effort to do that with her. I'm going to reach out to this student and a crew and get involved that way. I really hope to increase my involvement, especially as years go by and I might retire someday. I really want to be involved because this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity you don't want to lose. This is something, they're young, these people, but something you will say, something you can do with them, it may change their lives, for the rest of their lives. So again, it's like I keep seeing Lisa, now's your chance. Now take it. Don't hesitate. Take it and go. So yeah, I promised her I would. I told her she did such a good job on Meet the Prof, and I said, I promise you, I'm going to try really hard to do that.
Well, Karen, any other things that you want to talk about? Is there anything you'd like to share we left out? I just,
want to thank both of you, Shane and Spence, because for what you've done. I saw an email from you or from someone that it came across, and I was so curious. I immediately went to it and started listening. I've listened to all the podcasts. Every time you send me, hey, listen to a minute of so-and-so, I do that. And I just, I'm so glad you're doing this. It is sometimes a struggle for faculty to be able to reconcile everything within their head and how to do this on campus and then how to, take this to their home life and to work through all of that. And I think it's a great opportunity for people. So I hope you keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks for sharing the encouragement. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yep, and you all make it fun to do this. We're so grateful for you and you using this platform to share about God's work in your life and through your life. And it's been great to have you on here. Thanks for joining us.
Enjoyed it.
Someday I might have you on the podcast. How about that? On advocacy, change it up.
I'd love that. That'd be a switch, wouldn't it?
I'm
not used to the other end.
I may be a public health problem, though. Maybe you can diagnose it.
We'll have to correct that.
Well, I'm so thankful for Karen. I really appreciate her doing that interview with us. And remember, you can find out more about Karen on meettheprof.com and look her up, Karen Liller. And if you are interested in finding out more about our ministry, you can always go to facultycommons.org. Faculty Commons is a Cru ministry, and I'm on staff with them. And if you're interested in supporting my ministry personally, thank you very much. And you can give online at give.cru.org. That's cru.org/0424344. So until next time, we hope this encourages you to have a Christ-centered conversation on your college campus.